When I was young, life glittered with an effortless charm. I assumed that existence was as simple as a gentle summer breeze. My family was well off, and every whim was instantly fulfilled. I hardly had to lift a finger. If my eyes caught something appealing, a word to my father, and it was mine. Friends would whisper about saving for the future, but I couldn't help but laugh at the thought. Why bother to toil when comfort was handed to me on a silver platter? Every sunrise I awoke leisurely, relishing breakfasts in bed while the television played endlessly. Evenings were for laughing with pals over lavish meals, speeding in shiny cars, and donning clothes that seemed to promise a life without limits. I lived in a constant state of indulgence, never bothering with the what-ifs of tomorrow. One morning, as I was basking in my usual routine, my father's tone was different. There was an unfamiliar gravity in his eyes. "Sit down," he said gently but firmly. I casually complied, expecting perhaps a lesson on money management, but his expression was unusually somber. "Son, you're not a child anymore. There will come a time when all this ease will no longer be yours by default," he cautioned. I scoffed lightly, replying with a breezy confidence, "But father, I have everything I need." His eyes, however, spoke of a deeper truth, a silent warning that comfort is only as enduring as one's ability to forge it. I shrugged off his admonition and returned to my carefree world. Days slipped by in the same unhurried pattern, until one ordinary afternoon a twist of fate beckoned me to step outside my familiar bubble. It started with an invitation from my usual friends, an invitation to spend the day without a care in the world. I got ready in my best clothes, adjusted a spritz of expensive cologne, and descended the stairs into what I assumed would be another frivolous day. To my surprise, I paused in the hallway. My father was waiting, a steely seriousness etched on his face. "Come with me," he instructed simply, almost as if we were about to embark on an unexpected journey. We drove away in his car, bypassing the glittering parts of our city into neighborhoods that bore no trace of opulence. The streets were lined with modest homes and fading storefronts. There I saw people hustling with determined smiles despite their exhaustion, a street vendor arranging a colorful array of fruits under a time-worn umbrella, an elderly seamstress mending tattered clothes with both pride and determination. My father pointed at each of these individuals. "See this, son? He rises at dawn and labors tirelessly so his family can have a humble meal. And that woman who's been stitching her life together for decades shows what persistence truly means." For the first time, I felt a pang of guilt over my indolent days. I had never considered that these unpretentious souls were writing their own stories of sacrifice and resilience, while I simply absorbed life as an endless series of indulgences. "Life isn't always handed to you on a tray," my father softly reminded me as his words echoed in the quiet hum of the car. Later that day, our journey led us to a building I'd passed countless times yet never really seen, a modest office that pulsed with the energy of busy, determined souls. Unlike the gilded boardrooms and sunlit lounges of my previous world, this place was alive with the clatter of keyboards, the murmur of collaborative meetings, and a palpable sense of urgency. My father led me into his office, a space where the stakes were high and the challenges palpable. "Do you know what I do every day?" he asked as we settled into a small, unassuming office corner. "I wake up with the sunrise, tackling decisions and overcoming obstacles that most wouldn't dare to face." I listened as he recounted the daily grind of managing a business that was built on sweat and perseverance. The room was filled with colleagues who were far removed from the leisurely, unchallenged life I had known. Then, with a deliberate pause, he pressed into my hands a worn leather-bound notebook. "Tomorrow you'll start at the very beginning. You'll learn that every decimal on these pages represents a part of our story, a story built with relentless effort." I laughed incredulously. "Work? But, Father, I never needed to work before." Yet his gaze was unyielding as he continued, "One day, I will not be here, and it will be your duty to stand on your own, to earn what you truly deserve." That night, sleep evaded me. My mind replayed the images of the tireless fruit vendor and the steadfast seamstress, the busy office humming with an energy I had always regarded as mundane. I wondered how I had been so blind to the reality beyond my sheltered existence. The realization that comfort could be fleeting stirred an unfamiliar longing to understand the true essence of effort. The following morning arrived with an eerie insistence. Unlike my usual languid awakenings, I rose early with a sense of trepidation and curiosity. I dressed in the same casual clothes that had once been my uniform of ease, but now they felt like a costume for a performance I wasn't prepared for. Downstairs, my father was already seated at the breakfast table, a modest meal laid out before him and a small lunch bag waiting for me. "Today you begin your journey," he said with a nod that brimmed with quiet determination. We drove once more, this time to a side of his office that felt worlds apart from my former life, a cramped room filled with industrious people hunched over mountain-sized piles of paperwork and blinking computer screens. A stern yet kind-faced man named Mr. William greeted us. "You're going to work with me today," he stated briskly, as if expecting no questions. With an uneasy mix of curiosity and reluctance, I took a seat at a worn desk cluttered with papers. "Your task is simple," Mr. William explained. "Examine these reports, spot the errors, mark them, and learn from every mistake." At first, the work was surprisingly straightforward, but soon the endless rows of numbers blurred before my eyes. My head began to ache, and a fatigue unlike anything I'd ever felt crept into my limbs. Around me, colleagues worked in near silence, focused, unwavering. Lunchtime offered no respite from the reality of this labor. I ate a simple sandwich from my lunch bag while my co-workers exchanged brief, understanding smiles. Their camaraderie was woven with shared struggles and silent pride, a tapestry of persistence I had hitherto overlooked. The afternoon dragged on, punctuated by Mr. Williams' occasional checkups at my desk. Each mistake he highlighted stung, but with each correction, I started to see a pattern, an unspoken lesson in precision and perseverance. By day's end, a subtle transformation was stirring within me. Tired yet oddly fulfilled, I stepped out of that modest office and found my father waiting, silently gauging the shift in my demeanor. Without asking how my day went, his simple nod and quiet smile said enough. I was beginning to understand. The next few days unraveled like this, a steady, unrelenting plunge into the world of hard work. Every morning I traded my indulgent, carefree habits for the discipline required by my new routine. My back ached, my hands trembled from fatigue, but with each challenge, I grew increasingly resilient. I started making fewer mistakes, my pace quickened, and somewhere amidst the spreadsheets and deadlines, I unearthed a well of respect, a deep appreciation for every person who toiled day after day to build a better life. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, I sat in the quiet corner of our modest break room. The chatter around me wasn't filled with idle banter. It was genuine, supportive conversation about hopes, struggles, and the future that lay ahead. I listened intently, realizing that there was so much more to life than carefree laughter and momentary luxuries. I began to see myself not as someone destined to be pampered, but as a person capable of contributing to something meaningful, a person who could learn and eventually lead. Weeks turned into months, and my earlier resistance gradually transformed into a drive to excel. Mr. Williams. Curt, good job became not just a remark, but a milestone on my journey toward maturity. One evening, as I sat in my modest new workspace, a space that now bore a small plaque with my name, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. It wasn't the luxury of endless resources that now defined me. It was the dignity of hard work, the lessons learned from countless errors and small victories alike. My father called me into his office one final time that day. With a calm, almost tender look, he said, "You've changed. You now understand that every bit of success, every ounce of money earned is a testament to hard work." I nodded in reverence, knowing deep down that my life had taken a new turn. He then reached into a drawer and produced a small antique key. "This key," he explained, "is not just to an office. It unlocks the door to your future, a future built on your own efforts." The weight of that key was more than physical. It carried the gravity of trust and responsibility, a promise that every challenge I faced would only make my achievements all the more genuine. Now, as I sit at my desk in that small office I once dreaded, I remember those early days with a bittersweet smile. The life of ease I once took for granted has been replaced by the rewarding struggle of earning every success. My journey taught me that money is earned through sweat and persistence, and that true freedom comes not from an absence of work, but from the honor of a job well done. I now greet each day with the confidence and humility of someone who has learned that every moment of hardship carries within it the seeds of growth and self-respect. Truly, life isn't handed to you, it's built.